The doctor asked, "Is your wife the one who makes your tea every night?" Stunned, I silently nodded. He added, "Then tonight, drink nothing she brings you." That night, I pretended to sleep, and when I saw what my wife did in the dark. "Doctor, are you sure you examined everything correctly? I can't sleep without taking my tea at night." The words came out of my mouth, almost like a plea. Dr. Leopoldo stopped writing in his notebook. He looked up very slowly. He stared me straight in the eyes for several seconds that felt like an eternity. There was something in his expression that deeply unsettled me, something I couldn't decipher. And then he asked a question that would change absolutely everything. "Tell me one thing, Horacio. Is it your wife who prepares your tea every night?" I was completely paralyzed. What kind of question was that? What did Carmina have to do with my sleeping problems? I nodded in silence, confused, without understanding absolutely anything that was happening. The doctor leaned forward. His face was completely serious. Too terribly serious for a simple consultation about insomnia. "My advice is this," he said, lowering his voice as if someone could hear us. "Today don't drink anything she brings you." I smiled at his words. I couldn't help it. They seemed absurd, almost insulting. What was he insinuating exactly? That Carmina, my wife of 18 years, the woman with whom I share my entire life, was doing something wrong? It was completely ridiculous. But something in his eyes left me disturbed. Something in the grave tone of his voice planted a seed of doubt that I couldn't ignore. That night when I got home from work, I couldn't stop thinking about those strange words. "Today don't drink anything she brings you." Why would a professional and respected doctor say something like that? What had he seen in my blood test to justify such a warning? I decided to check for myself just to reassure myself, just to prove to myself that the doctor was completely wrong and that my wife had nothing to do with my problems. I resolved to pretend I was sleeping that night, to observe without her knowing just that. And when I saw what my wife was doing during the night, when I watched her move around our room, believing I was sound asleep, I understood something absolutely terrifying. Everything I thought I knew about my marriage was a carefully constructed lie. And the person sleeping next to me every night was a complete stranger. But I need you to understand something first. I need you to know exactly who I was before that doctor's appointment, before that impossible question, before discovering the truth that would shatter my life. Because only then can you truly understand the magnitude of what I was about to discover. My name's Horacio. I'm 46 years old. For the last 2 decades, I've built a life that any man would be genuinely proud of. I'm a senior supervisor at an international logistics company with a presence in 12 countries. I manage corporate accounts that move hundreds of thousands of dollars every month. I coordinate teams of more than 30 people across 3 different shifts. I earn around $5,000 a month, a very respectable figure. I have my own 3-bedroom house, completely paid off in a quiet and safe neighborhood. A car from this year that I just finished paying for. Considerable savings in the bank for emergencies. When I enter a meeting room of my company, conversations automatically stop and everyone pays attention to me. When I speak at the neighborhood association meeting, people take out pen and paper to note my opinions. I'm respected by my colleagues, even admired by the younger ones who see me as a role model, the kind of man others point to as a clear example of success and stability. Someone who has everything perfectly under control in every aspect of his life. Or at least that's what everyone saw from the outside, including myself until very recently. Carmina and I got married when she was just 22 and I was 28. It was a simple but beautiful wedding in a small church downtown, nothing ostentatious or exaggerated. She wore an ivory-colored dress that looked beautiful on her, that she had bought with her own savings. I felt like the luckiest man in the world that day. She was young, beautiful, quiet, the type of woman any traditional man would look for to start a family. The first years were good, maybe not passionate like in the movies, but stable, comfortable. She dedicated herself to turning our small house into a cozy home. I dedicated myself to working hard to move up in the company and earn more money. A very traditional division of roles that seemed natural and functional to both of us. We never had children. We tried for the first 5 years of marriage without any results. We visited doctors, had tests done, everything seemed to be fine with both of us, but it just didn't happen. Eventually, we stopped trying. Carmina never explicitly said if it bothered or hurt her. I never asked directly because I didn't know how to approach the subject. It was one of those delicate issues that hung in the air between us, never really resolved. We just moved on with our lives as if it didn't matter. Our marriage wasn't passionate or romantic, I acknowledge that, but it wasn't conflictive or problematic either. There were no screaming matches that woke up the neighbors. There were no slammed doors or threats of divorce, just that comfortable and predictable routine that naturally sets in after so many years together. Good morning. Did you sleep well? What should I make for dinner? How was your day? Automatic conversations that didn't require much thought or emotional depth. A peaceful and orderly coexistence that I honestly confused with marital stability. Carmina was always very attentive to specific details of my routine, especially everything related to my nighttime schedules. Every night, absolutely without fail for years, she prepared me a steaming cup of chamomile tea with a spoonful of honey. She said it would help me relax deeply after long and exhausting workdays, that it was important for my health to have a good sleep routine, and I drank it every night without ever questioning it. It was a gesture of affection on her part, a way of taking care of me, or at least that's what I genuinely believed. Everything changed exactly 3 months ago. The date is etched in my memory because it was the first night in years that I couldn't sleep at all. Not 1 minute. Not even those small fragmented dreams one sometimes has. I had my tea, as always at 10 p.m., went to bed promptly at 11, turned off the light, closed my eyes, and simply lay awake staring at the dark ceiling until the sun began to enter through the window. At first, I thought it was something completely temporary and unimportant. Accumulated work stress, normal financial worries, anxiety about an important project I had pending, any normal thing that happens to anyone. But the second night, the exact same thing happened again. And the third night, too. And the fourth, a full week without being able to sleep for even an hour straight. My eyes burned constantly. My head throbbed with a dull ache that wouldn't go away. At work, I started making small mistakes that I would normally never make. Carmina was extremely concerned about my situation. She constantly asked me how I felt, if I had improved at all. She prepared my nightly tea with even more care and dedication than before. She insisted that I drink it all, down to the last drop, leaving nothing. She said that sooner or later the relaxing effect would take hold of my body, that I just needed to be patient and give it time, that chamomile was world-renowned for its natural sleep-inducing properties, but the more religiously I drank the tea every night, the worse I slept. It was completely paradoxical, illogical, maddening, as if my body were doing the exact opposite of what it should be doing. I started noticing other strange things that had no logical explanation. Small, disturbing details that simply didn't fit with my reality. During the day, sitting at my office desk, I had inexplicable lapses in concentration. I would stare blankly at the illuminated screen of my computer, unable to remember what the hell I was working on. I would completely lose the thread of important conversations mid-sentence, leaving my colleagues looking at me with evident concern. My hands trembled slightly when I tried to hold important documents during presentations. One Tuesday afternoon, my brother Alvaro came to visit me without warning. We sat in my living room and talked about work, family business, the usual things two brothers discuss. At one point, I mentioned something casual about a very important meeting I had with an international client the previous week. I described specific details, the gray suit I had worn, the bitter coffee I drank that morning, the exact words I said in the presentation. Alvaro put his cup down on the table and looked at me with a genuinely confused expression. What meeting, Horacio? That meeting was almost 2 full months ago. You called me that same day to tell me exactly how it went. Don't you remember? I was completely silent, frozen inside, confused to the point of panic. 2 months ago, that was impossible. I was absolutely sure, completely convinced that the meeting had been just last week. I could remember every detail with perfect clarity. The smell of the coffee, the color of the client's tie, everything. But when I checked my electronic calendar with trembling hands, I indeed discovered that Alvaro was completely right. The meeting had occurred exactly 2 months ago. My perception of time was completely distorted in a terrifying way. That night, I mentioned the disturbing incident to Carmina while we had dinner in silence. I expected her to be concerned too, to suggest seeking professional help immediately. Instead, she dismissed the matter entirely with a reassuring smile that now, looking back, seems completely false. "It's perfectly normal, love," she said in a soft voice as she served me more food. "You're absolutely exhausted from not sleeping well for so many weeks. Your brain is playing these temporary tricks on you. It's a common reaction of the body to a lack of proper rest. You just need to relax more. Drink your tea tonight, and eventually everything will get better. You'll see." But it didn't get better at all. Everything got dramatically worse. The third week of endless insomnia, I began to experience things I knew couldn't be real. I saw dark shadows moving in the corners of my peripheral vision, quick movements that completely disappeared when I turned my head to look directly. A constant and oppressive feeling that someone invisible was watching me, even when I was completely alone in a locked room. Rationally, I knew they were classic hallucinations caused by extreme sleep deprivation. I had read it in medical articles, but that rational knowledge didn't make them any less terrifying when I experienced them. At work, my direct boss called me into his private office one Friday afternoon. He closed the door behind me. His expression showed genuine concern mixed with something else. Disappointment, maybe. "Horacio, I need to speak with you with complete honesty," he said, sitting across from me. "Are you okay? Really okay? I mean, because you've been making very serious mistakes lately. Mistakes that are definitely not typical of someone with your experience and impeccable record. Yesterday, you sent a client's confidential information to the completely wrong email address. Last week, you completely forgot a crucial video conference with important investors. I have human resources asking me what's happening with you." I explained the whole insomnia situation with deep embarrassment. I told him I was actively seeking professional medical help, that this was temporary, that I would be the reliable employee I always was again very soon. He listened to me in silence, nodding slowly, but his face didn't relax. "I'm going to give you 2 full weeks to solve this problem. Horacio," he finally said, 2 weeks to seek treatment and get back to your normal performance level. "But if after that time things don't improve significantly, I'm going to have to seriously consider temporarily suspending you. I'm very sorry to tell you this, but I can't allow mistakes like these to continue affecting the company. I hope you understand." 2 weeks. My 18-year professional reputation, built with so much effort, was at serious risk because of something I couldn't control in any way. I felt real panic for the first time in decades. That night, I came home completely desperate and begged Carmina to let's set aside the nightly tea to try literally anything else. Natural valerian pills, guided meditation, breathing exercises, professional therapy, whatever was necessary, but something different because clearly the tea wasn't working at all. Carmina reacted in a way that genuinely surprised me. Her usually soft face tensed visibly. Her normally sweet eyes darkened with something I couldn't quite identify. Anger, fear, frustration. I didn't know at that moment. "No, Horacio," she said with an unusual firmness in her voice. "The tea is the only thing that's really helping you in this difficult time. Without it, you'd be much worse off than you are now. Believe me when I tell you this. I know perfectly well what's best for you. Trust me, as you always have. Don't abandon the treatment right now." There was something deeply disturbing in her tone of voice, something possessive and controlling that I had never heard before in all our years together. Something that definitely didn't fit with the quiet, compliant, and submissive Carmina I thought I knew perfectly, but I was so mentally exhausted, so physically drained, so desperate for any solution, that I simply nodded weakly and drank the damn tea once more without protest. The following days were a downward spiral into something I can only describe as temporary madness. In the office, I confused the names of important clients during a crucial presentation. At home, I completely forgot entire conversations I had supposedly had with Carmina the day before. My hands trembled so much that I dropped my cell phone 3 times in a single afternoon, finally cracking the screen. One night, while we were having dinner in that uncomfortable silence that had become our norm, I tried to remember something simple. What day was it today? I couldn't remember. I looked at the calendar on the kitchen wall. Wednesday, but it could have been any day. They all felt exactly the same in my confused mind. Carmina noticed my obvious confusion. "Are you okay, love?" she asked with that concern that now seemed acted out to me. "Maybe you should go to bed earlier tonight. Maybe 2 cups of tea instead of just one would help you better." 2 cups. The suggestion should have alarmed me immediately, but in my deteriorated mental state, I just nodded like an obedient child. That night, I drank 2 full cups of the chamomile tea she prepared so carefully. And that night was the worst of all. Not only did I not sleep at all, but I had complete episodes of depersonalization, terrifying moments where I didn't recognize my own hand in front of my face, where my reflection in the bathroom mirror seemed like a complete stranger. The next day, a gray and cold Thursday, I finally made the decision to seek urgent professional medical help. I couldn't go on like this for another day. My entire life was literally falling apart before my eyes. I called from my office and asked for an emergency appointment with Dr. Leopoldo, a general practitioner with an excellent reputation who worked at a private clinic very close to my job. The receptionist heard the clear desperation in my voice. She gave me an appointment for that same afternoon. At 5, I canceled my last meetings of the day without caring about the consequences and drove to the clinic with my hands still trembling on the steering wheel. The consultation was thorough and meticulous. Dr. Leopoldo did complete blood tests, a detailed physical examination of all my systems. He took my blood pressure 3 times because the numbers seemed strange to him. He asked me specific questions about absolutely everything. My exact daily routine, my detailed diet, my exercise habits, my alcohol or drug consumption, my sex life with my wife. I told him absolutely everything without hiding any details. The insomnia that had lasted for almost 3 full months, the severe short-term memory lapses, the uncontrollable tremors in my hands, the terrifying visual hallucinations, the constant mental confusion, the depersonalization, everything. I desperately hoped he would prescribe something really strong, some potent medication that would finally allow me to sleep like a normal person. But instead of immediately taking out his prescription pad, Dr. Leopoldo stared at my lab results for several long and uncomfortable minutes. He frowned, checked something twice, then looked me straight in the eyes with an expression I'll never forget. It was a strange mix of professional medical concern and something more personal. Alarm, suspicion. And then he asked that question, that simple question that brought my whole constructed world crashing down. "Tell me one thing, Horacio. Is it your wife who prepares your tea every night?" The question hung in the air between us like something physical and heavy. Is it your wife who prepares your tea every night? It seems so simple, so innocent, so completely out of place in a serious medical consultation. However, the way Dr. Leopoldo looked at me while waiting for my answer sent a shiver down my entire spine. "Yes," I finally replied in a weak voice. "Yes, Carmina. She prepares chamomile tea with honey for me every night for years. It's part of our routine. She says it helps me relax after work." "Why do you ask that, doctor? What does the tea have to do with my sleep problems?" The doctor didn't answer immediately. Instead, he got up from his chair and walked to a metal filing cabinet in the corner of his office. He pulled out a thick folder full of documents and began to look for something specific among the pages. He finally found what he was looking for. It was a printed medical article with complicated graphs and tables that I couldn't understand from where I was sitting. "Horacio, listen to me very carefully," he said, returning to his desk but without sitting down. "Your blood results show something very worrying. You have abnormally high levels of certain substances in your system. Substances that shouldn't be there naturally. They're consistent with the regular intake of certain compounds that in small but constant doses produce exactly the symptoms you're experiencing." I didn't fully understand what he was telling me. My exhausted brain struggled to process his words. "What kind of substances, doctor? Where could they be coming from?" I don't take drugs. I barely drink alcohol socially. I don't take any prescription medication. I know, he said patiently, but with evident urgency. That's why I need to ask you this question directly, and I need you to answer me with absolute honesty. Does anyone else prepare your food or drinks regularly? Someone who has constant access to what you consume. Carmina, I said automatically. Only Carmina cooks at home. But, doctor, what are you insinuating exactly? My wife would never hurt me. We've been married for 18 years. What you're suggesting is impossible. Dr. Leopoldo sighed deeply, finally sat down, and placed his hands on the desk, looking at me with a seriousness that genuinely scared me. Horacio, I'm not making definitive accusations, he said carefully. But as a doctor, I have an obligation to alert you to what your tests are clearly showing. The levels I see here are consistent with slow and progressive poisoning. Someone is regularly administering something to you, something that's destroying your ability to sleep, your memory, your motor coordination. And if it continues, the effect could become permanent or even fatal. I felt the office start to spin slowly around me. Poisoning. The word echoed in my head like an alarm bell. It couldn't be true. It couldn't be possible. Carmina was my wife. I'd known her for decades. She slept next to me every night. We shared our entire life. But then I remembered her strange reaction when I suggested stopping the tea, her almost aggressive insistence that I continue drinking it, her disturbing suggestion to increase to 2 cups a night, the way her eyes darkened when I questioned her method. Small details that seemed insignificant at the time, but now, in this terrible new light, took on a completely different meaning. What should I do? I asked with a trembling voice. Doctor, tell me what I should do right now. My medical advice is this, he said, leaning forward. Today, when you get home, don't drink absolutely anything she brings you. Nothing at all. Not tea, not juice. Not water if she served it. Observe her reaction when you refuse. People who do these things often reveal their true nature when they lose control of the situation. And tomorrow morning, come back for more specific tests. We need to identify exactly what substance is in your system so we can start an appropriate detoxification treatment. I left the doctor's office in a state of deep shock. I walked to my car without really remembering how I got there. I sat in the driver's seat without starting the engine for almost 20 full minutes, just breathing, just trying to process what I had just heard. Was it possible? Was it really possible that Carmina, the woman with whom I'd shared my life for almost 2 decades, was deliberately poisoning me night after night? Why would she do something so monstrous? What reason could she have? We had a stable life. I provided her with everything she needed. I was never unfaithful. I was never violent with her. What could motivate her to do this to me? As I drove slowly towards my house, my mind began to review entire years of marriage, looking for signs I might have ignored. Had I been blind all this time? Were there clues I didn't see because I trusted too much? I remembered small, strange things I had dismissed as unimportant. The time Carmina was inexplicably upset when I received an important promotion at work, how her eyes narrowed with something resembling resentment when my brother Alvaro commented on my professional success, the way she sometimes looked at me when she thought I didn't see her, with an empty and cold expression that disappeared instantly when our eyes met. How long had she been feeling this way? Years? Since the beginning? Or had it been something gradual, a resentment that grew slowly until it turned into silent hatred? I got home just before 7 p.m. Carmina was in the kitchen preparing dinner, as usual. The smell of homemade food filled the whole house. Everything seemed perfectly normal, terribly normal. How did it go at the doctor's? She asked without turning to look at me, as she stirred something in a pot. Did he finally prescribe something for you to sleep? He did some tests. I replied in a neutral voice as I put my keys on the table. I have to go back tomorrow for more tests. He said there's something strange in my blood that he needs to investigate further. I saw her back tense slightly, barely perceptible, but I noticed it. Something strange, she asked, slowly turning towards me. Her face showed concern, but there was something forced in her expression. What kind of strange thing? He didn't specify yet. I lied. He just said he needs more tests. Carmina, I'm so tired tonight. I think I'll go to bed without dinner if you don't mind. But you have to eat something, she protested, walking towards me. And you have to drink your tea. It's more important than ever that you maintain a routine, Horacio. Especially now that you're so weak. There was again that strange insistence, that almost desperate need for me to drink the tea. The doctor's words echoed in my mind. Observe her reaction when you refuse. You know what? I think I'm going to skip the tea tonight, I said, watching her carefully. My stomach is very upset. I better just go to bed like this. The transformation in her face was instant and terrifying. Her eyes opened too wide. Her mouth tensed into a thin line. Her hands clenched into fists at her sides. No, she said in a flat and cold voice I had never heard from her. You can't skip the tea, Horacio. You need it. It does you good. You have to drink it. Carmina, it's just one night, I said, instinctively backing away. I'll resume it tomorrow. Tonight, I just don't feel well. No, she suddenly shouted. Her voice echoed throughout the house. You have to drink it. You have to drink it tonight. It's for your own good. I was completely paralyzed. In 18 years of marriage, Carmina had never shouted at me like that. She had never shown this violent intensity. She had never lost control in such an abrupt and terrifying way. And in that moment, looking at her wide eyes and her face contorted by something I can only describe as panic mixed with fury, I knew with absolute certainty that Dr. Leopoldo was right. My wife was poisoning me. The silence that followed her scream was deafening. Carmina stood there in the middle of the kitchen, breathing heavily, looking at me with those eyes I no longer recognized. They were the eyes of a stranger, of someone I had never really known despite sharing almost 2 decades together. Carmina, I said in the calmest voice I could muster, why is it so important that I drink the tea specifically tonight? Help me understand. I saw her expression change rapidly. The fury transformed into something more calculated, more controlled. She tried to smile, but the result was a strange grimace that didn't reach her eyes at all. Forgive me, love, she said in a now soft and conciliatory voice. It's just that I'm very worried about you. You've been so sick lately. I just want you to get better. The tea really helps you, even if you don't believe it. You just need to be consistent with it. Please, trust me as you always have. There was something deeply manipulative in her tone, something that appealed directly to my guilt, to my sense of duty as a husband. I recognized the tactic because she had probably used it on me thousands of times over the years without me consciously realizing it. All right, I said finally, you're right. I'll drink it, but first I need to go to the bathroom and change my clothes. Give me a few minutes. I saw the immediate relief on her face. Please, yes. I'll make you the tea in the meantime. So it's hot and ready when you come down. I went up the stairs to our bedroom, feeling her eyes on my back. I went into the bathroom and locked the door. I sat on the edge of the tub, breathing deeply, trying to control the panic that threatened to overwhelm me. My wife was poisoning me. That phrase kept repeating in my mind like a broken record. My wife was poisoning me. I needed concrete evidence. I needed physical evidence that I could show the authorities. I couldn't just accuse her based solely on the medical tests and my suspicions. I needed to see it with my own eyes. I needed to know exactly what she was giving me and why. Then I remembered Dr. Leopoldo's exact words. Observe her reaction when you refuse. People who do these things often reveal their true nature when they lose control. But he had also said something else, something about pretending. I made a decision at that moment. That night, I would pretend to drink the tea, I would discreetly pour it out, and then I would pretend to be asleep to observe what Carmina did when she thought I was completely unconscious. If she was really poisoning me, maybe she would do something else. Maybe she would check something. Maybe she would reveal her entire plan without knowing I was watching her. I changed my clothes slowly, giving her time to prepare the tea. When I finally came down, she was sitting on the living room sofa with a steaming cup on a coffee table. She was smiling. That smile I knew so well, but which now seemed completely fake and rehearsed. Here it is, love, she said, pointing to the cup. I made it exactly how you like it, with 2 spoonfuls of honey instead of 1, because you need the extra energy. 2 spoonfuls. Again, trying to increase the dose of whatever she was putting in it. I sat down next to her, and took the cup with hands I hoped weren't visibly trembling. The liquid was hot. It smelled normal, like sweet and comforting chamomile. Nothing seemed out of place superficially. "Thanks," I said, bringing the cup to my lips. Carmina watched me attentively, too attentively. Her eyes followed my every move with an intensity that I found deeply unsettling. I pretended to take a long sip. I let the liquid barely touch my lips, but without swallowing it. I made the appropriate sound of someone drinking. Carmina smiled, satisfied. "Is it good?" she asked, leaning towards me. "Perfect as always," I lied. "But you know what? I need to get a glass of water, too. My throat is very dry." I stood up, taking the cup with me, towards the kitchen. Carmina started to get up, too, but I stopped her with a gesture. "Don't worry, I'll be right back," I said quickly. In the kitchen, with trembling hands, I poured almost the entire contents of the cup into the sink, leaving only a little at the bottom. I briefly turned on the tap so the sound of running water could be heard. My heart was beating so hard I was sure she could hear it from the living room. I returned with the almost empty cup and my glass of water. I sat down next to her again. "I almost finished it," I said, showing her the bottom of the cup. "It's making me feel better already. I think I'll finally be able to sleep tonight." Again, that satisfied and chilling smile. "I'm so glad to hear that, Horacio. I knew you just needed to trust the process. Why don't you go up to bed? I'll finish cleaning the kitchen and be up in a bit." I nodded and went up the stairs, feeling her eyes following me again. I entered our bedroom and lay down on the bed, fully dressed except for my shoes. I turned off the light on my side. I closed my eyes, but left them just barely open so I could see through my eyelashes. I made my breathing slow and deep, as if I were falling into a heavy sleep. I heard the normal sounds of Carmina moving around downstairs, running water, dishes clinking softly, her footsteps on the stairs after what felt like an eternity, but was probably only 20 minutes. The bedroom door opened slowly. She stood in the doorway for several long seconds. I could feel her gaze on me, assessing if I was really asleep. I breathed more deeply. I left my mouth slightly open, even added a small, soft snore. She finally came in, closing the door very carefully behind her. She walked to her side of the bed, but didn't get in. Instead, she waited. She just waited in silence for what must have been 5 full minutes, testing me, checking that I was truly unconscious. "Horacio," she whispered softly, "are you awake?" I didn't answer. I kept my breathing steady and deep. She waited another eternal minute, and then did something that completely froze my blood. She walked to the closet in our bedroom, opened it silently, moved some boxes on the top shelf that I never checked because they were full of her personal things. She took out something small, a box or a jar. I couldn't see exactly what it was from my position without risking her noticing I was awake. She left the bedroom carrying that object with her. Her footsteps went down the stairs. Again, I heard vague sounds from the kitchen, something being put away, a door closing softly, maybe the cabinet under the sink where we kept cleaning products. Several minutes later, she returned. This time she did change her clothes, putting on her nightgown. She got on her side of the bed, but didn't fall asleep immediately as she normally did. I felt her awake beside me, alert, listening to my breathing, checking that I was still sound asleep. It went on like that for almost a full hour, me pretending to be unconscious, her constantly checking that the poison had taken effect. It was psychological torture to lie there motionless while my mind screamed with 1,000 unanswered questions. Finally, when it must have been almost 2 in the morning, Carmina got out of bed again. This time she moved with more confidence, more certainty that I was completely out. She left the bedroom again, leaving the door ajar. I waited 30 seconds, mentally counting each one. Then I silently got out of bed with extreme care. Every muscle in my body was tense, every nerve alert. I walked barefoot to the door and looked into the dark hallway. There was a dim light on downstairs. It was coming from the kitchen. I heard sounds of Carmina moving around down there. Something being opened, something being handled. And then I heard her voice. She was talking on the phone in a very low voice, but not low enough. "Yes, he's completely asleep," she whispered. "Tonight's dose was higher. He won't wake up until tomorrow afternoon at least." "Yes, I'm sure. I've been doing it for months." He's almost where we need him. Soon he won't be able to function without me at all. He'll be completely dependent. I felt the floor move beneath my feet. He'll be completely dependent. She wasn't trying to kill me. She was trying to destroy me mentally, to destroy my independence, my ability to function, to have me completely under her control. The voice continued whispering things I couldn't hear completely, but I had heard enough, more than enough. I silently returned to bed before she came up again. My mind was racing at 1,000 miles per hour. I needed a plan. I needed concrete evidence. I needed to get out of this situation before it was too late, but for now, I had to keep pretending, keep playing the part of the poisoned husband sleeping soundly, knowing nothing. Carmina returned to the bedroom minutes later. She got into bed next to me again. This time she finally fell asleep. I heard her breathing deeply. I heard small, soft snores, and I stayed awake all night, completely awake, planning my next move. The darkest hours of that night were the longest of my entire life. I lay there, completely motionless, next to Carmina, listening to her calm breathing while my mind processed the horrible truth. She wasn't trying to kill me directly. Her plan was much crueler and more calculated than that. She wanted to destroy my mental capacity, make me dependent, turn me into someone who couldn't function without her, a broken husband who needed her constant care for everything. When the first rays of light began to filter through the bedroom window, I pretended to wake up slowly. I groaned, I stretched. I rubbed my eyes like someone who had slept soundly all night. Carmina woke up almost immediately when I moved. "Good morning, love," she said in a sweet and worried voice. "How did you sleep? You finally slept like a rock." I lied, looking her straight in the eye. I don't remember anything at all since I went to bed. I slept so deeply I didn't even dream. The tea really worked this time. I saw the satisfaction shine in her eyes. "I knew it," she said, smiling broadly. "You just had to trust me. You just needed to be consistent. Now that your body has finally responded well, we have to continue with the same routine. Every night without fail. Every night without fail. Of course. To continue systematically poisoning me until my mind and my autonomy were completely destroyed." I smiled back, feigning gratitude when in reality I felt nauseous. I got out of bed, careful to act a little disoriented, as if the supposed deep sleep had left me dazed. Carmina watched me attentively, every move I made, looking for signs of her poison's effect. "Do you feel well enough to go to work today?" she asked with false concern. "Maybe you should stay home and rest more. I can call your office and tell them you're sick." "No," I said quickly. "I need to go. I have that important meeting with the boss. Remember, he gave me a 2-week deadline. I can't miss today, or he'll think I'm worse." "Oh, yes, of course," she said with a strange expression. "The important meeting. Well, if you insist, I'll make you a big breakfast." So I had a quick breakfast of what she prepared, but with extreme care. I watched how she cooked everything. I didn't leave my plate unattended for a second. I didn't drink the juice she served me without watching her prepare it directly in front of me. I mentally evaluated every bite, looking for strange flavors or incorrect textures. I left the house as quickly as I could with the excuse of avoiding morning traffic. As soon as I closed the door and got to my car, I took out my cell phone and called Dr. Leopoldo directly. His receptionist told me he hadn't arrived yet, but that I had my appointment scheduled for 9 a.m. "Please tell him it's extremely urgent," I pleaded. "Tell him that Horacio confirmed everything he suspected, that I need to see him immediately when he arrives." I drove straight to the clinic without even stopping by my office first. I arrived almost 30 minutes before my appointment, but I didn't care. I sat in the waiting room, trembling slightly from adrenaline and the real lack of sleep accumulated over months. Dr. Leopoldo saw me as soon as he got to the office. His expression was grave as he closed the door behind us. "Tell me exactly what happened last night," he said without preamble. I told him absolutely everything in great detail. Her violent reaction when I initially refused the tea, how I pretended to drink it, how I pretended to be asleep. The phone call I overheard where she admitted to drugging me for months, her exact word about making me completely dependent on her. The doctor took detailed notes as I spoke. When I finished, he leaned back in his chair and sighed deeply. Horacio, this is even worse than I initially thought, he said seriously. What you're describing is a clear case of deliberate and systematic poisoning with the intent to cause permanent psychological damage. We need to act quickly on two fronts. First, medically we have to start an immediate detoxification treatment. Second, legally you need to report this to the proper authorities. The authorities, I repeated, feeling a surge of panic. You mean the police? Doctor, if I do that, if I formally accuse my wife, I need concrete evidence. I need more than my blood tests and what I heard last night. You're right, he admitted. We need physical evidence of the poison itself. You said you saw her take something from her closet last night, that she put it somewhere in the kitchen. Yes, I confirmed, but I didn't see exactly what it was or where she specifically put it. It sounded like the cabinet under the sink, but I'm not completely sure. Then you need to get that evidence, the doctor said firmly. Today, if possible, before she suspects you know anything, before she has a chance to get rid of everything. Take pictures, record videos, document absolutely everything you find. And bring me samples if you could do so safely. And if she catches me, I asked with a trembling voice, what if she realizes I'm looking for evidence against her? I don't know what she's capable of. I really thought I knew her, but I was obviously completely wrong about who she really is. The doctor leaned forward, looking me straight in the eyes. Horacio, understand something very important. Your wife has already crossed a very serious line. She's already shown she's capable of systematically poisoning you for months without any apparent remorse. If she suspects you've discovered her plan, we don't know how she might react. She could escalate the situation dramatically. She could increase the doses trying to cause permanent damage before being discovered. You need to act fast, but with extreme care. His words terrified me, but they also gave me clarity. He was right. Every day that passed without concrete evidence was another day Carmina could continue poisoning me, another day where my mental and physical health deteriorated. All right, I finally said with renewed determination. I'm going to go into my house when she's not there. I'm going to look for that poison. I'm going to photograph everything, and then I'm going to formally report it. Perfect, the doctor said. In the meantime, I'm going to prepare a detailed medical report documenting all your symptoms, your abnormal blood tests, and my professional opinion on deliberate poisoning. That will serve as additional evidence when you go to the authorities. I left the office with a clear plan, but with my stomach in a knot of nerves. I needed a credible excuse to return home at an unexpected time, something that wouldn't raise immediate suspicion if Carmina asked. I called my office and spoke directly to my assistant. I explained that I'd had an early doctor's appointment and needed to work from home for the rest of the day because the doctor had given me strong medication that was making me drowsy. It wasn't technically a lie. Then I called home. Carmina answered on the second ring. Hello, love, I said in a casual voice. I was just calling to let you know the doctor gave me some new medication for the insomnia. It's making me very sleepy, so my boss gave me permission to work from home. I'm going to stop by the office quickly to pick up my laptop and some files, and then I'll be there. There was a brief pause, too brief to be natural. Oh, that's great they finally gave you something, she said in a controlled voice. What time do you think you'll get here then? In an hour or so, I replied. I need to stop by the pharmacy too to pick up the prescriptions. Will you be home? Another pause. Actually, I was planning to go out to do some shopping, she said slowly. But I can wait until you get here if you want. No, don't worry, I said quickly. Go ahead. I have a key, obviously. I'll see you later. I hung up before she could answer. Perfect. If she went shopping, as she said, I would have time alone in the house to search without her watching me. But there was also the possibility she suspected something, that she was lying about going out precisely to stay and watch me. It didn't matter. I had to take the risk. I needed that evidence one way or another. I drove to a coffee shop near my house and waited for exactly 40 minutes, obsessively watching my phone. Then I drove slowly towards my street. I drove past my house first without stopping. Carmina's car wasn't in the driveway. She had really left. I parked half a block away as a precaution. I walked quickly to my front door. My hand was shaking so much it was hard to get the key in the lock. I finally managed to open it and went inside, locking the door behind me. The house was completely silent, empty, but I felt an oppressive presence in every corner, as if Carmina's secrets had seeped into the very walls. I went straight up to our bedroom. I went to the closet. I moved the boxes on the top shelf exactly as I'd seen her do the night before, and there it was, hidden behind a box of old shoes, a small amber-colored glass jar, unlabeled, half full with a fine white powder. With trembling hands, I took out my phone and began to photograph everything from multiple angles. I photographed the jar from every possible angle, its exact location in the closet, the shelf, the boxes concealing it. I took a short video showing how it was deliberately hidden behind Carmina's personal items that she knew I would never check. My heart was beating so hard I could hear it in my ears. I went downstairs quickly to the kitchen. I opened the cabinet under the sink where I had heard her put something the night before. There, behind the usual cleaning products, I found a small metal box. I took it out with extreme care and opened it. Inside were several smaller jars, some empty, others with different powders and liquids. And most disturbing of all, there was a small notebook with handwritten notes. I opened it with trembling hands and began to read. It was a log, a damn detailed log of everything. Dates, doses, observations on my behavior, effects she noticed in me. It was all there, documented with chilling precision. January 15th. Increased dose to 0.5 gram. Horacio reported difficulty concentrating at work. Excellent progress. February 3rd. Full dose of 1 gram. Experienced first episode of temporary confusion. Asked about an event that happened months ago, believing it was recent. Plan working perfectly. March 22nd. Double dose. Visual hallucinations confirmed. Mentioned seeing shadows. Hand tremors more pronounced. Almost ready for final phase. I felt bile rising in my throat. This hadn't started 3 months ago as I thought. She had been poisoning me for at least 4 full months, maybe more. The previous pages of the notebook showed entries dating even further back. I photographed every page of that damn notebook, every word, every date, every cruel and calculated observation about my deterioration. Then I photographed the jars, took samples of the powders using small plastic bags I found in a drawer. I needed them to analyze exactly what substances they were. I was putting everything back in its original place when I heard a sound that completely paralyzed me. The front door opening, footsteps entering the house. Carmina was back. Panic instantly flooded me. I still had the notebook in my hands. The bags with samples were on the kitchen counter, the jars out of the metal box. Everything was exposed. If she walked into the kitchen at that moment, she would catch me immediately. Horacio, her voice called from the entrance. You're back. I saw your car outside. I thought faster than I ever had in my life. I put the notebook back in the metal box. I closed the box, awkwardly pushed it back into the cabinet under the sink, grabbed the bags with samples, and stuffed them into my back pants pocket. I stood in front of the sink and turned on the water tap just as she walked into the kitchen. Oh, yeah. I just got here, I said without turning around. I was just getting some water. These new meds make me really thirsty. I felt her approach, too close. I could smell her perfume. The same sweet perfume that I once found pleasant, but now made me nauseous. Are you okay? She asked with that fake concern I now recognized perfectly. You look very nervous, very agitated. It's the medication. I lied, finally turning to look at her. The doctor said it can cause anxiety at first. I feel weird, shaky. She studied me with those cold, calculating eyes. My poor love, she said, touching my arm. Come, sit in the living room. I'll bring you something to calm you down. A little tea, perhaps. No, I said too quickly. I don't want tea now. Just water is fine. I'm going to go up and lie down for a bit. I need to rest. I saw something cross her face. Suspicion, confusion. I wasn't sure, but I nodded and headed for the stairs before she could stop me or ask more questions. In the bedroom, I closed the door and immediately took out my phone. I put the bags with samples in the inner pocket of my work jacket that was hanging in the closet. Then I sat on the bed, trying to control my rapid breathing. I had gotten evidence. Photographs, physical samples, the damn notebook documenting everything. But now I needed to get out of this house with that evidence intact and take it to the authorities before Carmina suspected anything. I heard her footsteps on the stairs. She stopped in front of our bedroom door. The doorknob turned slowly, and she entered without knocking first. "Horacio," she said in a strangely flat voice. "We need to talk." My heart stopped for a second. "About what?" I asked, trying to sound casual. "About your new medication," she said, closing the door behind her. "What exactly did the doctor prescribe? I need to know to make sure it doesn't interfere with your nightly tea. It would be very dangerous to mix the wrong things." "Oh, I don't know the technical names," I lied. "I just know they're for sleeping. The doctor said they're safe, that I can take them with anything." "But I should know," she insisted, taking a step towards me. "I'm your wife. I take care of you. Give me the prescriptions. I want to see them." "I don't have the prescriptions here," I said, getting up from the bed. "I left them in the car. And besides, I already picked up the medicine from the pharmacy, and it's in my work briefcase." Another lie, but a necessary one. She looked at me in a way I had never seen before. There was something dangerous in her eyes, something predatory. "Then bring them," she said with that flat, cold voice. "Bring your briefcase. I want to see exactly what they're giving you right now." "Carmina, I'm very tired," I protested. "Can we do this later? I just want to sleep for a bit." "No," she said, blocking the bedroom exit. "We can't do this later. We'll do it now. Go get your briefcase, or better yet, give me your car keys. I'll go get it myself." I understood at that moment that she knew, or at least strongly suspected, that something wasn't right, that I was acting differently, that I had discovered something. Her body language was aggressive, defensive, dangerous. "All right," I said. "I'll go get the briefcase. Wait for me here." "No," she said immediately. "I'm going with you." "Carmina, I really need you to leave me alone for a moment," I said with unusual firmness. "I feel very sick. I need some air." I saw her expression change. The mask of the concerned wife slipped completely, revealing something cold and calculating underneath. Something that terrified me deeply. "You know," she said slowly, "somehow you found out, didn't you, Horacio?" The silence that followed was absolute. It was pointless to keep lying. She knew. I knew. The game was over. "Yes," I finally said, looking at her directly. "I know what you've been doing to me. I know about the poison, the plan to make me dependent. I know everything." Her face showed no surprise, no guilt. Instead, something akin to relief crossed her features, as if she had been waiting for this moment, as if she was tired of pretending. "Good," she said with a chilling calm. "Then I guess I don't need to pretend anymore, do I?" The transformation was instant and terrifying. The woman who had been pretending to be a concerned wife disappeared completely. In her place was someone I didn't know at all. Someone cold, calculating, dangerous. "When did you find out exactly?" she asked with genuine curiosity, as if we were discussing the weather. "Was it yesterday at the doctor's appointment? Did the doctor tell you something?" I didn't answer, just watched her with a mixture of horror and fascination as she slowly walked around the bedroom. Her movements were different now, more confident, more deliberate, like a predator that no longer needs to hide. "Ah, it was the doctor then," she said, smiling humorlessly. "I should have anticipated that. The blood test probably showed something. How annoying. I thought I had at least another month before any doctor could clearly detect it." "Why?" I asked, my voice breaking. "Carmina, why did you do this to me? What did I do to you to deserve being poisoned for months?" She laughed, a dry, bitter laugh I had never heard in 18 years of marriage. "What did you do to me?" she repeated with venomous sarcasm. "Horacio, you have no idea about anything, do you? You never did. Always so busy being the successful man, the respected supervisor, the perfect husband. You never stopped to really look at me, to see me as a person, as someone with her own needs. I loved you," I said, feeling tears burning my eyes. "I gave you everything I could. A house, stability, respect." "Respect." She spat the word as if it were poison. "You respected me when you made all the important decisions without consulting me, when you assumed I would be happy just cleaning your house and cooking your food, when you never asked me what I wanted out of life. What dreams did I have? I didn't know you felt that way," I protested weakly. "You never said anything. You never complained." "Of course I didn't complain," she said with a voice heavy with resentment accumulated over years. "Because I learned from the beginning that my opinions didn't really matter, that my role was to be the perfect, quiet wife of the perfect man, to smile, to nod, to serve the tea. Do you know how many times I wanted to scream? How many times I felt invisible in my own home? Then why didn't you talk to me? I argued desperately. We could have gone to therapy, worked on our marriage. Anything but deliberately poisoning me. Therapy, she laughed again. Oh, Horacio, always so naive. I didn't want to save our marriage. I wanted to destroy you. I wanted to see you vulnerable, dependent. I wanted you to feel even a fraction of the helplessness I felt for years. Her words hit me like physical punches. This wasn't an impulsive plan. It wasn't temporary madness. It was pure, calculated hatred accumulated over entire years, while I lived completely oblivious to her suffering. And what did you plan to do when I became completely useless? I asked. What was your final plan? She sat on the edge of the bed with disturbing tranquility. She looked towards the window as if she were remembering something pleasant. I planned for you to get to the point where you couldn't work anymore, she explained in a dreamy voice. Where your mind was so confused you couldn't function without my constant help. Then I would be indispensable. I would have all the control, all the power. You would need me for everything, to get dressed, to eat, to remember your own name, even. It's monstrous, I whispered. You're a monster. She looked at me directly then. Her eyes were completely empty of any emotion I could recognize as human. No, Horacio. I'm someone who finally took control of her own life. Someone who stopped being invisible. Do you know what it feels like to be invisible for 18 years? To be just an accessory in someone else's perfect life. But I never treated you badly, I protested, feeling genuinely confused. I was never violent. I was never unfaithful. I gave you everything I could. Exactly, she said with deep bitterness. You gave me everything you thought I needed, but you never asked what I really wanted. You assumed, you decided, you controlled. And I slowly faded away until I no longer knew who I was beyond being Horacio's wife. The silence that followed was heavy and oppressive. Part of me understood her pain. I understood that maybe I had been an emotionally absent husband without realizing it. But that didn't justify what she had done. Nothing justified systematically poisoning someone for months. I have evidence, I finally said. Photographs of the poison, of your notebook with all the notes, samples of the substances. I'm going to report you to the police. You're going to prison for this. She looked at me for long seconds, then smiled. A chilling smile that terrified me more than anything else she had done so far. Oh, really? She said with chilling calm. And you think anyone will believe you? Look at you, Horacio, trembling, paranoid, confused. For months your behavior at work has been erratic. Your own boss is considering suspending you. Your brother notices you confuse dates and events. Any decent lawyer will argue that you're having a mental breakdown, that you're falsely accusing me because your mind is failing. No, I said with more confidence than I felt. I have Dr. Leopoldo's medical report, the blood tests that show the substances in my system, your own notebook documenting everything. It's physical and irrefutable evidence. Her smile faded slightly. For the first time, I saw something like real concern cross her face. Give me your phone, she said, extending her hand. Give me your phone right now, Horacio. No, I replied, backing towards the door. I'm not giving you anything. I'm leaving this house right now, and I'm going straight to the police. I moved quickly towards the bedroom exit, but she was faster. She stood between the door and me. Her face was now distorted by something I can only describe as panic mixed with fury. You're not going anywhere, she said in a low, threatening voice. Not until you destroy those photographs. Not until you give me back what you stole from me. Get out of the way, Carmina, I said in a firm voice, although my body was trembling. I'm not going to fight with you. Just let me out. No, she suddenly shouted. I'm not going to let you ruin everything. I worked for months on this, months planning, calculating every dose. I'm not going to prison for trying to regain some power in my own life. Her voice broke on the last sentence. I saw tears in her eyes, tears of frustration, of rage, of something that was perhaps genuine pain buried under all that accumulated hatred. For a moment, we just looked at each other, two people who had shared almost 2 decades together but were really complete strangers. Two people destroyed in different ways by a marriage that should never have existed. I'm sorry, I finally said, and I genuinely meant it. I'm sorry I didn't see your pain. I'm sorry I made you feel invisible, but what you did is unforgivable. Carmina, you need to pay for this. You need professional help. You need to be away from me and anyone else you might hurt. She collapsed then. She slid down the door until she was sitting on the floor, crying openly. She was no longer the cold, calculating woman from minutes ago. She was just someone broken, someone who made the most wrong decisions possible to deal with her suffering. I took advantage of that moment of vulnerability. I quickly moved around her and out of the bedroom. I ran down the stairs, crossed the living room, opened the front door, and stepped out into the daylight, feeling the fresh air fill my lungs. Behind me, I heard her sobs. I heard her voice shouting my name, but I didn't stop. I didn't look back. I got into my car. I started the engine with still trembling hands. I drove straight to the nearest police station without letting myself think about anything else. It was the end of my marriage, the end of the life I knew, but it was also the beginning of reclaiming my health, my sanity, my freedom. The police station was only 15 minutes from my house, but the drive felt like an eternity. My hands trembled on the steering wheel. My mind replayed the conversation I had just had with Carmina over and over again. Her words loaded with resentment, her cold and calculated confession, her transformation from a submissive wife to someone completely unrecognizable. I parked in front of the main entrance of the gray police building. I sat in the car for several minutes, trying to regain my composure. I needed to appear sane, coherent, believable. If I went in too agitated, they might think exactly what Carmina had suggested, that I was having a mental breakdown and falsely accusing her. I took several deep breaths. I took out my phone and reviewed all the photographs I had taken. The poison jar in the closet, the metal box hidden under the sink, every page of the damn notebook with its detailed notes. The bags with physical samples were safe in the inner pocket of my jacket. I had solid evidence. I just needed to present it correctly. I finally got out of the car and entered the building. The reception was simple. A desk with a uniformed officer who looked up as I approached. "Good morning," she said in a professional but kind tone. "How can I help you?" "I need to report a serious crime," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "My wife has been deliberately poisoning me for months. I have physical and medical evidence to prove it." The officer's expression changed from routine to serious instantly. "Please have a seat, sir. I'll call a detective immediately." I sat in one of the hard plastic chairs in the waiting room. Other citizens were there for various matters. A woman filling out forms, a young man waiting with a bored expression. No one paid me any particular attention. I was just another citizen reporting just another problem. 15 minutes later, a detective appeared. He was a man in his 50s with gray hair and a tired but attentive expression. He introduced himself as Detective Claudio Vargas. "Sir," he said, shaking my hand, "come with me, please. We'll speak in private." I followed him down a long hallway to a small interview room. 2 chairs, a metal table, an old recorder on the table, nothing else. It was exactly like in the movies, but somehow more depressing in reality. "Tell me everything from the beginning," the detective said, taking out a notebook. "Take your time. I need every relevant detail." And so I did. I told him absolutely everything from the beginning of the insomnia 3 months ago. The progressive symptoms that were constantly getting worse, the memory lapses, the hallucinations, my visit with Dr. Leopoldo, his disturbing question about who prepared my tea, the warning not to drink anything that night, Carmina's violent reaction when I initially refused the tea, how I pretended to drink it and pretended to be asleep. The phone call I overheard where she admitted to drugging me for months. My return home that morning to look for evidence. The discovery of the hidden poison and the notebook documenting everything. The final confrontation where she openly confessed everything. The detective took notes constantly. Occasionally, he would interrupt me to ask specific questions about dates, times, exact details. He showed no particular emotion, just listened and documented professionally. When I finished my full account, I showed him all the photographs on my phone. He reviewed each image carefully. He enlarged the photos of the notebook to read Carmina's notes. He examined the images of the jars from multiple angles. "Do you have the physical samples you mentioned?" he finally asked. "Yes," I said, taking the plastic bags out of my jacket. "I took samples from 2 different jars. I don't know exactly what substances they are, but I hope your labs can analyze them." The detective took the bags with latex gloves he took from a drawer, examined them briefly before sealing them in official evidence bags. "And Dr. Leopoldo's medical report?" he continued. "Do you have it with you?" "He's preparing it right now," I explained. "He told me it would be ready this afternoon. It documents all my symptoms and my blood tests showing abnormal substances in my system." The detective nodded slowly. "Mr. Horacio," he finally said in a serious tone, "this is an extremely serious accusation. Deliberate poisoning with intent to cause permanent harm is a major felony that carries significant prison sentences. Before we proceed, I need to make sure you understand the magnitude of what you're reporting. Once we start the legal process, there's no going back." "I understand perfectly," I said firmly. "My wife systematically poisoned me for months, trying to destroy my mental capacity. She herself openly admitted it. I want her to be prosecuted with the full weight of the law." "All right," the detective said. "Then this is what's going to happen. First, we're going to send these samples to our forensic lab for immediate analysis. Second, I'm going to obtain a court order to search your house and confiscate all physical evidence, the notebook, the jars, anything else relevant. Third, I'll need Dr. Leopoldo's complete medical report as soon as it's available. And fourth, we're going to arrest your wife for formal interrogation." "How long will all that take?" I asked. "The lab may take several days for complete results," he explained, "but I can get the search warrant in a couple of hours." "Is your wife at your house currently?" "She was there 30 minutes ago when I left," I replied. "I don't know if she's still there or if she left after our confrontation." "I'm going to send a patrol car to check," he said, getting up. "In the meantime, I need you to remain available. Don't go back to your house under any circumstances. Do you have a safe place you can stay? Close family, perhaps." "My brother Alvaro," I said immediately. "Can I stay with him?" "Perfect, call him now. And Mr. Horacio," he added with an understanding expression, "I know this is extremely difficult, but you did the right thing by coming here. Many victims of this type of abuse never report out of shame or fear. You were brave." His word affected me more than I expected. I felt tears burning my eyes again. I hadn't allowed myself to fully process the emotional betrayal of all this. I had been operating in pure survival mode. But now, in the relative safety of that interview room, the reality began to truly set in. My wife had hated me for years. She had meticulously planned my destruction. She had executed her plan with chilling precision, and I hadn't noticed a thing until it was almost too late. I left the police station in a state of deep emotional shock. I called Alvaro from the parking lot. He answered on the 3rd ring. "Horacio," he said with his familiar, comforting voice. "What's wrong, brother? You sound terrible." "Alvaro, I need to stay with you," I said with a broken voice. "Something very serious happened with Carmina, something I can't explain over the phone. Can I come now?" There was a brief pause. "Of course," he replied without hesitation. "Come immediately. I'm waiting for you." I drove to my brother's house without really remembering the route. My mind was on autopilot. When I arrived, Alvaro opened the door before I could knock. He looked at me with evident concern. "God, Horacio, you look awful. Come in quick. Tell me everything." And I did. I told him the whole story from the beginning, while he listened with an expression that went from concern to horror to fury. When I finished, he sat in silence for several minutes, processing everything. "That sick woman," he finally said with a voice full of rage. "Horacio, I always thought something was weird with her, always so quiet, so submissive, but I never imagined she was capable of something like this." "Me neither," I admitted with a tired voice. "Alvaro, I felt so secure in my marriage, so confident, and it was all a lie, a perfect performance for years." "You're going to stay here as long as you need," my brother said firmly. "And we're going to make sure that woman pays for every day she poisoned you. I promise you." His unconditional support broke me emotionally. I cried for the first time since all this began. I cried for the betrayal, for the lost years, for the life I thought I had, but which never really existed. My phone rang, interrupting the moment. It was Detective Claudio. "Mr. Horacio," he said in a professional voice. "I have news. We've just arrested your wife. She's in custody right now. She tried to destroy evidence when we arrived. We found a notebook half-burned in the backyard, but we recovered enough to corroborate everything you reported." I felt a mixture of relief and deep sadness. Relief because there would finally be justice. Sadness because this definitively confirmed the end of my marriage and the complete destruction of the life I knew. "Thank you, Detective," I said with a trembling voice. "What happens now?" "Now we wait for the lab results and prepare the formal case," he explained. "I'll keep you informed every step of the way. For now, rest, recover your health, let justice take its course." The following days were a strange mixture of relief and deep pain. I stayed at Alvaro's house while the legal process moved forward slowly but inexorably. Detective Claudio kept me informed of every development. The lab results confirmed that the substances in the jars were prescription sedatives mixed with other compounds that, in small but constant doses, produced exactly the symptoms I had experienced. Severe insomnia, mental confusion, memory lapses, tremors. Everything had been calculated to destroy me without killing me. Carmina was formally charged with attempted poisoning with aggravating circumstances. Her lawyer tried to argue that she suffered from undiagnosed mental health problems, that she had acted under extreme emotional stress, but the evidence was too clear, too meticulous. The notebook with months of detailed notes demonstrated absolute premeditation. There was no way to present it as an impulsive act of temporary insanity. Dr. Leopoldo helped me enormously during that period. He put me on a supervised detoxification program. Slowly, very slowly, my mind began to clear. The tremors subsided. The memory lapses became less frequent. For the first time in months, I was able to sleep naturally without the need for poisoned tea or strong medication. My company was understanding when I finally explained the full situation. My boss apologized for not having noticed the signs that something serious was happening. They gave me paid medical leave to recover completely. They assured me that my position would be waiting for me when I was ready to return. 3 months after the arrest, there was a court hearing. I had to testify before the judge, explaining everything I'd gone through. Seeing Carmina sitting at the defense table was surreal. She looked different, smaller, more fragile. She was no longer the terrifying monster of my nightmares. She was just a broken woman who made horrible decisions to deal with her pain. When it was my turn to speak directly to the judge, I chose my words carefully. "Your Honor," I began in a firm voice. "I'm not going to lie and say I don't feel anger for what she did to me. I was on the verge of losing my career, my mental health, potentially my life. But I've also had time to reflect, to understand that my marriage was broken in ways I didn't see. That doesn't justify the poisoning. Nothing justifies it, but I recognize that I was an emotionally absent husband, that I never really asked what she needed, that I assumed providing materially was enough when it clearly wasn't." I paused. I looked at Carmina directly. She had tears running down her cheeks. "I hope she gets the psychological help she clearly needs," I continued. "I hope she can eventually find peace, but I also hope she pays for her actions, because what she did was monstrous and no one, no matter how much they suffer, has the right to destroy another person that way." The judge listened to both sides, reviewed all the evidence extensively. He finally delivered the sentence. Carmina was sentenced to 5 years in prison with the possibility of parole after 3 if she demonstrated complete rehabilitation. She was also ordered to attend intensive psychological therapy throughout her sentence. When they read the sentence, Carmina looked at me one last time. Her lips formed 2 silent words. "I'm sorry." I don't know if she really meant it or if it was just final manipulation. Honestly, it didn't matter anymore. The divorce was processed quickly after the sentencing. There were no disputes over assets. She gave up everything. The house, the savings, everything. Maybe it was her way of apologizing, or maybe she had simply lost all of the fight. It's been 6 months since that day in court. I returned to work, fully recovered. My professional reputation was restored when the truth came to light. My colleagues were incredibly understanding and supportive. I even received a promotion last month. Ironic that the worst time of my life eventually led to one of the best. I'm in therapy now, not just to process the trauma of being poisoned, but to understand my own mistakes in that marriage, to learn to be more emotionally present, to not repeat the patterns that contributed to that disaster. I've forgiven Carmina, not completely. Maybe I never will completely, but I've found something like peace. I've learned that people can hide immense pain behind perfect smiles, that silence isn't always acceptance, that we need to ask, to listen, to really see the people we love. Last night, for the first time in years, I made my own tea. Just simple chamomile with honey. I sat in my new living room, in my new apartment. I drank it slowly, without fear, without paranoia, just enjoying the comforting warmth. And I slept all night soundly, without nightmares. Life goes on, the scars remain, but they no longer control me. I've learned that trust is fragile, but necessary, that love without communication is just an illusion, that we must heed the signs before it's too late. If my story serves any purpose, I hope it's this. Never ignore your gut feeling when something feels wrong. Never assume you completely know someone just because you've been together for years. And never ever take the people you love for granted, because the most dangerous person might be serving your tea with a smile.